You think camping is peaceful, just tents, firelight, and the quiet of the woods. But out here, far from the safety of home, the forest hides things you were never meant to see. Tonight, I'll share 5 terrifying camping horror stories. Stories of trails that lead nowhere, whispers that know your name, hands that scratch where no hand should be, campsites that vanish into nothing, and a lantern that burns without a body to hold it. By the time we're done, you'll never step into the woods at night again. The number 4 and 5 are the most terrifying. You will never want to miss it. It started as a weekend adventure. For friends, Ethan, Claire, Marcus, and Danny set out to explore a stretch of forest along the Appalachian backcountry. The plan was simple: a 2-day hike, a night under the stars, then back to civilization with stories to tell. They weren't amateurs. Ethan had military survival experience. Claire grew up camping with her family. Marcus, the jokester, carried enough snacks to feed a small village, and Danny documented everything on her phone for social media. But the forest had its own plans. By late afternoon, the sun dipped low, and they realized the trail markers had stopped appearing. What should have been a 3-hour hike had turned into 6. Their GPS flickered, drained faster than usual, and every shortcut only seemed to pull them deeper. "Let's just set up camp," Ethan finally said, tightening the straps on his pack. "Daylight will make it easier to find the trail." None of them argued. They were tired, hungry, and the woods, though beautiful, had a strange stillness, as though waiting. The tent went up quickly. They lit a fire, cooked canned food, and tried to laugh off their mistake. But the forest didn't laugh with them. At first, it was small things. The silence, too complete. No insects, no owls, no rustling of leaves. The fire flickering strangely, shadows stretching taller than they should. A faint smell of earth and rot, drifting between the trees like a warning. Danny swore she heard whispers, carried on a wind that never touched their faces. Marcus laughed it off, but his laugh was too sharp, too nervous. Eventually, exhaustion pulled them into sleep. When they unzipped the tent at dawn, everything had changed. The clearing they'd slept in was still there, but the trail was gone. The familiar beaten path was now a wall of thick trees, their trunks packed tightly together, their branches woven like fingers to block the way. "We didn't camp that far off the trail," Claire said, her voice tight. "It was right there." Ethan pulled out his compass. The needle spun in lazy circles. Useless. Phones? No signal. Batteries draining unnatürlich fast. They tried walking anyway, pushing through the undergrowth, but every direction led them back to camp. No matter how far they walked, no matter which landmarks they marked with ribbon or scratched in a bark, they always came back to the tent. It was as if the forest itself was folding around them. By the second night, tension cracked their nerves raw. They sat around the fire, silent. Shadows moved where there was no light. Claire froze when she saw it. A figure standing just beyond the tree line. Tall, still, watching. When Ethan turned his flashlight on it, nothing. Just trees. But the feeling remained. They weren't alone. That night, no one truly slept. And sometime past midnight, Marcus whispered, "Someone's in the tent." Ethan jolted awake, grabbed his knife, and yanked the zipper open. The tent was empty. Just their sleeping bags. But when he turned back toward the fire, Danny was staring at him in horror. "Ethan, you never got out of the tent." Morning brought no relief. They tried walking again, this time in pairs, leaving Danny to guard the camp. Hours later, when they staggered back, Danny's face was pale. "You left," she whispered. "But then you came back, minutes after leaving. All of you. Just walked back into camp, sat down, didn't speak. Then you left again." They didn't believe her. They couldn't. Until night fell, and Marcus wandered out to gather wood. 10 minutes later, Marcus came walking back. Silent, his face blank. his hands empty. "Marcus?" Claire asked. He didn't respond, just walked into the tent and lay down. The real Marcus stumbled back into camp 15 minutes later, arms full of branches. When he saw his double inside the tent, he dropped everything. "What the hell is that?" The copy vanished, but the sleeping bag was still warm. By the third day, paranoia devoured them. They stayed close, speaking little, jumping at every rustle of leaves. But the tent was the worst. Every time they returned, something was wrong. A sleeping bag unzipped when no one touched it. Footprints pressed into the floor. The faint sound of breathing inside, even when the tent was empty. One night, Ethan woke to find the zipper slowly sliding down on its own. He lunged, yanking it shut, but not before he saw a pale hand slip back into the darkness. Marcus broke first, laughing, swearing, screaming at the trees. He ran into the forest and didn't come back. Hours later, they heard him calling. His voice echoed, wrong, too high, too hollow. And when they followed the sound, they found nothing but claw marks on the bark. Claire began to cry silently, her eyes locked on the tent. "Whatever it is," she whispered, "it's in there." Danny wanted to burn the tent. Ethan refused, said it was their only shelter. But that night, as they huddled by the dying fire, they heard movement inside, shuffling, breathing, and then the voice of Marcus calling softly, "Let me out." Sleep was impossible. They sat in silence, waiting for dawn. But when the first gray light touched the trees, they saw something that broke them completely. The tent was moving. It bulged, shifted, as though something inside was crawling, pressing against the fabric. A face stretched the nylon, pale, distorted too wide. The zipper began to slide down, slowly, teeth parting. Ethan grabbed an axe and charged, screaming. The tent collapsed in on itself, sucking inward as though pulled from the inside. The ground split beneath it, roots twisting, dragging the tent down into the earth. And then it was gone, just an empty clearing. Days later, maybe weeks, maybe hours, time had no meaning. Only Danny and Claire remained. They stopped trying to leave. They stopped eating. The forest wasn't letting them go. One morning, Danny woke to find Claire gone. Her sleeping bag was full, though shifting, rising, falling, as though someone still breathed inside. When Danny unzipped it, the bag was empty, just the sound of breathing filling the air. She ran, blind, panicked, and when she staggered back to camp hours later, the tent was back, waiting. The zipper slid down. A voice whispered her name, and that was the last anyone ever heard of them. Some say the forest isn't just alive, it's hungry. It takes hikers not to kill them, but to keep them. So next time you go camping, remember this. If the trail disappears, if your compass spins, if your tent starts breathing when no one's inside, don't stay the night. Because once you step into the wrong trail, the forest never lets you leave. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are darker stories waiting, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. At first, they thought it was just an animal, scratching at the tent, circling them in the dark. But when the sound moved faster than any animal could run, and a handprint with too many fingers pressed through the fabric, they realized something else had found them in the woods. It was supposed to be the perfect weekend escape. For friends, Lena, Chris, Maya, and Jordan had driven hours into the deep woods, away from the city's noise, to camp beside a secluded lake. The air smelled like pine and earth. The sky stretched endlessly above them, and the only sounds were the ripple of water and the occasional bird call. Finally, Lena said, dropping her backpack with a satisfied groan. No traffic, no deadlines, no stress. Chris, her boyfriend, smirked. Just mosquitoes and bears. Real upgrade. They laughed. Maya, always the practical one, started setting up the tent while Jordan filmed everything on his camcorder. If you want to make a vlog of their trip, capture, the authentic wilderness experience. By dusk, they had a fire crackling, food sizzling, and stars beginning to appear overhead. Everything was perfect until the forest went quiet. It happened suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch. No crickets, no owls. Even the rustling of the wind through the leaves seemed to die away. "Wow," Jordan whispered, panning his camera toward the tree line. "You guys feel that? Probably just a predator nearby," Chris said, though his voice wavered. "Animals shut up when something bigger's around." Lena shivered. "Don't say predator. We're in the middle of nowhere." But eventually, the silence faded. The sounds of the forest returned, and with relief, they crawled into the tent, zipped it shut, and fell asleep to the faint chirping of crickets. Sometime past midnight, Lena woke. At first, she wasn't sure why until she heard it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Something was dragging across the nylon of the tent. Slow, deliberate. Her first thought was raccoon, or maybe a fox. She nudged Chris. "Do you hear that?" He grunted awake, listening. The sound came again, this time closer to his side. Scratch, scrape. Chris unzipped a corner of the tent and shined his flashlight outside. The beam cut through darkness, revealing only trees, brush, and shadows. No animals. Nothing moving. Probably just a branch, he said, though he zipped the flap back quickly. They tried to sleep again. Then the scratching started circling. Scrape, scratch, shuffle. Around the tent it went. Slow, steady, moving from one side to another. Maya sat up, her face pale. "That's not an animal. No animal moves like that." Jordan pressed his camcorder to the fabric, filming. "It's like walking." Indeed, the sound was deliberate. Bipedal, heavy enough to make the ground vibrate slightly under their sleeping bags. And then it stopped. The silence pressed in on them. Hearts pounding, they waited until something pressed against the tent wall. A handprint, long, thin, with too many fingers stretching unnaturally across the nylon. Lena clapped her hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. Chris grabbed a hatchet from his pack. "I'll scare it off," he hissed. "No." Maya grabbed his arm. If it wanted in, it would have come already. "Just stay quiet." They waited, breath shallow, as the hand dragged slowly down the side of the tent. Scratch. Then another sound, like nails clicking against each other. And then laughter. Not loud, not human. A thin, high-pitched giggle that came from everywhere at once. Jordan's camera caught it all. The trembling tent, the handprint, the sound. His whisper on tape. "This isn't possible." The laughter stopped, and the scratching began again. Faster, more frantic. Circling, circling, circling. By dawn, the scratching stopped. Exhausted, shaking, they stumbled out of the tent. Nothing was there. No footprints. No claw marks. Just their little clearing, the lake, and the whispering trees. "We're leaving," Lena said firmly. "Now, tea." They packed quickly and set off back down the trail. But the forest had changed. The path twisted in ways they didn't remember. The landmarks were gone, and every time they thought they were heading toward the car, they found themselves circling back to the lake. By afternoon, their nerves were raw. That night, they had no choice but to camp again. And as soon as darkness fell, scratch, scratch, scratch. It was waiting. This time, it didn't stay outside. The scratching grew violent, shaking the tent. The handprints pressed from every angle. Then, slowly, the zipper began to slide down. Chris lunged, yanking it shut, but a pale finger slipped inside before he could. Long jointed wrong, curling around the zipper like it belonged there. Maya screamed. Jordan swung his flashlight, and the finger retracted, vanishing into the dark. But the tent walls didn't stop moving. Hands pressed from every side now, stretching the fabric as though dozens of figures surrounded them. Lena whispered, "It's not one thing. It's many." They never made it out. On the camcorder's final tape, Jordan's voice quivers. "It's scratching again. It doesn't stop. Every time we close our eyes, It's closer. The tent feels smaller, tighter, like it's closing on us. A pause. Then, God, I think they're already inside. The footage ends with a scream. A ripping sound, fabric tearing wide. The camera tumbles, showing only a blur of shapes and fingers reaching in. Too many fingers. And then darkness. When rangers found the campsite weeks later, the tent was shredded. No bodies, no tracks, just the camcorder half buried in the dirt. The last seconds of the tape play on loop. Scratch, 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 followed by laughter. And that's why some campers say the forest doesn't want you there. It toys with you, circles you, scratches at the fabric of your safety until it finds a way inside. So if you ever hear scratching outside your tent at night, don't look, don't breathe, don't move, because once it finds you, it never stops. If this story sent chills down your spine, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I've got even darker tales waiting for you, and you won't want to miss the next one. Rachel and Tom had been planning this trip for weeks. Life in the city had worn them thin. Work, traffic, endless noise. A weekend in the woods promised peace, fresh air, and a chance to feel human again. They pulled into the campsite just before sunset, the last glow of daylight painting the treetops gold. It was a busy evening. The campground buzzed with life. Families grilling by picnic tables. Groups of college kids laughing around fires. Tents pitched neatly in the clearing, colorful against the darkening forest. Rachel smiled. See, not so isolated. We're surrounded by people. Tom nodded. Yeah, safety in numbers. They pitched their tent, made a quick dinner, and sat by their small fire, watching sparks drift up into the night. Around them, the chorus of laughter, chatter, and clinking bottles made the forest feel alive. The forest settled after midnight. One by one, fires went out, laughter dimmed, and tents zipped closed. Rachel and Tom lay tangled in their sleeping bags, listening to the night sounds. Distant crickets, the crackle of dying embers, a baby crying softly from a nearby tent. Rachel drifted first. Tom followed, until something stirred him awake. A soft rustle, then a faint zip sound. He blinked. The tent flap was open. Rachel, he whispered, nudging her. Did you? She groaned. What? The tent, it's open. Rachel sat up, frowning. I zipped it shut. They crawled out, expecting to see a raccoon or a curious child. But the campground was gone. The clearing stretched empty in every direction. No picnic tables, no firepits, no other tents. The grass where the other camps had stood was undisturbed, like nothing had ever been there. Rachel's breath caught. This isn't right. Tom rubbed his eyes, scanning the tree line. We must have gotten turned around. Maybe we set up somewhere else. But they both knew that wasn't true. They'd seen the others. They'd heard them. And now there was nothing. Except, faint laughter, echoing between the trees. Rachel clutched Tom's arm. Did you hear that? He nodded, his face pale. The laughter wasn't cheerful. It was mocking, desperate. They lit a lantern and searched the clearing. But no matter how far they walked, they found nothing. The road they'd driven it on? Gone. The trail markers? Gone. Even the sound of the river nearby had vanished. The forest pressed in, thick and endless. And still, faint laughter drifted between the trees, always just far enough away. Rachel whispered, "It's like we're alone. Completely." Tom swallowed hard. "No, something's here. Watching." Back in the tent, they tried to calm themselves. But the silence was unbearable. Every rustle of leaves made Rachel jump. Every creak of branches made Tom reach for the flashlight. Then came the shadows. Shapes passed against the nylon walls, tall, thin, moving in circles. At first, Tom thought it was their own fire casting strange patterns. But when he unzipped the flap, the fire was gone. Extinguished. The shapes remained. And then came the sound of tents unzipping. All around them. even though no tents were left but theirs. "Tom," Rachel's voice was shaking. "Do you hear it?" It wasn't laughter anymore. It was imitation. A voice outside whispered her name. "Rachel." She clapped her hands over her ears. Another voice called, "Deeper, Tom." Tom shouted, "Leave us alone." The forest answered with a chorus of voices, laughing, calling, mocking. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. But when he shined a lantern out, the clearing was empty, exhausted. They must have fallen asleep from sheer terror. When they woke, sunlight streamed through the tent. For one blissful moment, Rachel thought it had been a nightmare. Then she unzipped the flap. The campsite had returned. Picnic tables, fire pits, other tents, families bustling around. Rachel let out a shaky laugh. "We're okay. We're fine." Tom stepped out, dazed. "It's all back." But as they looked closer, dread pooled in their stomachs. The people weren't moving right. Their faces blurred, features melting like wax. Their laughter came too loud, too sharp, too wrong. And when the campers turned to look at them, every single one smiled at once. Rachel and Tom ran into the woods, away from the campsite. They didn't care where, they just needed to get away from those faces. Behind them, laughter followed, growing louder, closer. When they stumbled to a stop, panting, they were back at their tent. Alone. Again. The campground gone. Again. Only the faint echo of laughter remained, and the sound of a zipper sliding open behind them. Some campers say there are places where the forest plays tricks on you, where the world blinks and the people around you vanish. Or worse, something else wears their faces. So next time you pitch your tent, make sure the zippers are shut. And if you ever wake to find the campsite gone, don't go looking for it. Because once it vanishes, you're already part of its game. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are darker, stranger tales waiting, and you won't want to be alone when you hear them. The trail had begun like any other weekend hike. 5 friends, Eli, Maya, Lucas, Hannah, and Ben. College friends, bound by years of inside jokes and spontaneous adventures. This trip was supposed to be one more notch on the belt before adulthood swallowed them whole. They had set out early, their packs heavy with gear, the trail map printed from some outdated website. The air had been crisp, full of pine and damp earth. Birds had trilled overhead. It felt like freedom, but the Appalachians were deceptive. The trail markers faded. Paths forked where none should have. What should have been a 6-hour hike to the campsite became 9. They were battered by dusk when they stumbled into a small clearing near a slow-moving river. Exhaustion bled the humor out of them. Shoulders slumped, boots caked with mud. Even Lucas, the group clown, was silent. "Here," Eli said, dropping his pack. His voice was firm, a decision. "We're stopping here. This is it." Maya opened her mouth to argue, then shut it. Her legs were shaking. Hannah crouched at the river's edge, splashing cold water on her face. Ben knelt, rolling his neck until it cracked. No one spoke for a moment. Then they moved like clockwork. Tents unpacked, firewood gathered. By the time the last rays of sun flickered through the trees, 2 small tents stood near the water's edge, and a fire burned in the middle of the clearing. The forest swallowed the last of the daylight. The world shrank to a circle of flickering orange light. "Cheers," Lucas muttered, holding up a granola bar like a toast. "To survival." They laughed, soft but real. The fire was warm. Shadows danced along the tree trunks like tall, silent figures. The night felt safe. It always does. Maya was the first to hear it. She was staring into the flames, chin resting on her knees. The fire cracked and hissed. Somewhere beneath the crackle, she thought she heard something, a faint murmur, like the wind threading through pine needles. She blinked, shook her head. Exhaustion. That was all. Then it came again. Maya. Her name, whispered so softly she almost thought she imagined it. Her head snapped up. The others were talking, Lucas telling some story about a failed Tinder date, Hannah laughing quietly, Ben sharpening a stick into a spear for no reason but habit. No one else seemed to notice. She told herself she was imagining things. Fires make sounds. The brain does weird things when you're tired. Then the flames popped, sending up a spray of sparks, and the murmur slid out again. "Lucas." This time Maya's skin prickled. "Did you hear that?" she blurted. They all looked at her. "Hear what?" Lucas asked. "The fire," she said, pointing. "It just said your name. Ili Furonet." "What are you talking about?" "I swear," she said. "I heard it." Ben chuckled, though it was hollow. "You're tired. Fires hiss. You're hearing things." Then it came again. "Hannah." This time everyone heard it. They froze. The night pressed in around them, heavier now. "Tell me you all heard that," Hannah whispered. They had. And then the fire whispered again. Then Ili, Meo, Lucas. One by one, their names spilled from the flames. Wet and whispering. Lucas's face drained of color. Okay, that's not wind. Panic flickered like sparks between them. Eli grabbed his water bottle. "Screw this." He poured it over the fire. Maya kicked dirt over the embers until the flames hissed and died. Darkness rushed in, swallowing their circle of safety. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, Maya, Lucas, Hannah, the whispers. Not from a fire now, from the forest. Everywhere at once. Flashlights clicked on, beams slicing into the trees. Nothing, just trunks and shadows. But the voices slid closer, overlapping, multiplying. "Let us in." Not names now. Pleading. Commanding. Into what? Lucas hissed. His hands shook. They stumbled into the tents, zipping them shut. Inside, the air was hot and claustrophobic. The whispers scraped against the nylon walls like invisible nails. Dozens of voices now. Hundreds. Chanting their names. "Let us in." Something dragged across the fabric. Fingers. Long and deliberate. The nylon rippled. Maya clamped her hands over her ears. Hannah sobbed quietly. Lucas whispered prayers. And then the zipper moved. Slowly, smoothly. From the outside, the tent flap began to open. Ben lunged forward, holding it closed. "Don't," he snarled. Everything stopped. Silence. They held their breath. Then the voices began to laugh. Faint, childlike giggles swirling through the trees. Lucas's flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Out. The giggles became a chorus. They spent the night huddled together, too afraid to move. Every time one of them drifted towards sleep, the whispers rose again, circling, scraping, always just beyond the thin fabric. Dawn came like a weak apology. Sunlight spilled into the clearing. Birds chirped. The river gurgled. It was as if nothing had happened, except their fire pit was gone. Not smothered, not scattered, gone. The ground where it had been was smooth, covered in pine needles. No stones. No sign they'd ever made a fire at all. "What the hell?" Eli muttered. Their backpacks had been dragged a few feet from where they left them. The zipper on Hannah's bag was open, but nothing taken. "Someone's messing with us," Ben said, but his voice lacked conviction. They packed quickly, too frightened to talk. They would hike back to the car, get out, never speak of this again. But the trail was gone. Where yesterday there had been a clear path, now there were only thick, unnatural trees. The map was useless. The compass spun without settling. GPS showed nothing but gray. Every direction led them back to the clearing. And every time they returned, the clearing had changed just slightly. A different arrangement of trees. A missing rock. Their tent flap open, though they'd zipped it. And once something inside, a dark shape, sitting where they had slept, rising as they approached, slipping into the trees without a sound. Hours turned to a haze of panic. They tried everything, following the river, marking trees, splitting up and calling out. Every path curled back. The whispers started again, long before dusk. First faint like breath in their ears, then clearer, then chanting. Eli, Maya, Lucas, Hannah, Ben, listen, we are so cold. By sunset, they were no longer walking but stumbling. Ben vanished first. One moment he was there, trudging ahead. The next he stepped between two trees and simply didn't come out the other side. They screamed his name, ran forward. Nothing. Just forest. Just whispers. Hannah broke next. She dropped her pack, sank to her knees, sobbing. "They're in the trees," she whispered. "They're in the trees." She bolted. The others chased her, but she was fast, fueled by terror. They found only her shoes, neatly placed side by side at the edge of the river. No footprints beyond. By nightfall, only Eli, Maya, and Lucas remained. They built no fire. The whispers didn't need it anymore. They came in waves, sometimes gentle as lullabies, sometimes shrieking, always circling. Lucas began to laugh. A thin, broken sound. "They're calling my name." He giggled. "They're calling me home." He walked into the trees before they could stop him. His flashlight beam bobbed once, twice, then winked out. Maya clutched Eli's arm. "We're gonna die here," she whispered. Eli held her close, though his own hand shook. No, we're not." But the forest was closing in. The trees seemed closer, their trunks twisting like faces. The whispers changed. Now, they were using Eli's voice, Maya's voice, Lucas's, all at once. "Eli, Maya, come closer." The tent waited for them when they stumbled back to the clearing. Its flap was open. Inside, two sleeping bags. Their own faces stared out from the sleeping bags. Eyes open, smiling. Maya screamed. Eli pulled her back. They ran. They didn't know how long they ran. The forest shifted around them, endless and repeating. The whispers followed, patient. Finally, exhausted, they stumbled into another clearing. A fire burned there. No one tended it. Its flames danced high, orange and green. Whispers threaded through the crackle. "Maya, Eli." They were too tired to run. Maya fell to her knees. "What do you want?" she screamed. "What do you want from us?" The fire flared. "Let us in." Eli knelt beside her, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "We can't," he whispered. "We can't." The fire hissed. "You already did." Shapes rose from the flames. Thin and pale like paper people, faces stretching, mouths wide. They stepped out of the fire and into the clearing. Maya clutched Eli's hand. "Don't look," she whispered. But he looked. Their friends were among them. Ben, Honno, Lucas. Their skin gray, eyes black, mouths whispering. "Come with us." The shapes reached out, long fingers brushing Eli's face. Cold, so cold. He felt something slip into his chest. A weight, a voice. "Let us in," Maya screamed, pulling at him, but he was already changing. His skin pale, eyes black, mouth whispering. Maya, she ran. The forest swallowed her. Camp rangers found the clearing 2 days later. No tents, no bakbucks, no fire pit, just a circle of scorched earth by the river, and a single footprint, small, female, leading into the trees, and stopping, as if she had vanished mid-step. When the wind blew, it carried whispers through the branches. Names, always names. If you've ever gone camping in the deep woods, you know the silence isn't peaceful, it's oppressive. At night, the forest doesn't rest. It watches. You convince yourself it's just the wind, or an owl, or the crunch of some distant deer. But once you hear the wrong kind of sound, the sound that doesn't fit, you'll never sleep the same again. That's what happened to us. We weren't supposed to see the lantern. We weren't supposed to follow it. And we weren't supposed to find out what carried it. We were four: me, Kyle, Sarah, and Mason. College friends, bound more by habit than actual closeness at this point. Life was already tugging us in different directions: jobs, relationships, obligations. This camping trip was Mason's idea. 3 nights off-grid. He'd said, no phones, no stress. Just us in nature like we used to. We loaded up his old Subaru with tents, sleeping bags, and enough beer to survive a nuclear winter. Our plan was to hike out to a lake deep in the woods of northern Maine. Mason swore the spot was perfect. No campsites, no cabins, just wilderness. The drive took 8 hours. Then came the hike. The trail narrowed quickly, twisting through towering pines and birches that swallowed the sun. I remember the feeling that the forest didn't want us there. Like every step deeper was trespassing. By the time we reached the lake, fog was already creeping off the water. It clung to our boots, coiled low to the ground. Sarah shivered and muttered, "Creepy as hell." Mason just grinned. Perfect, right? The first night passed almost normally. We built a fire, roasted hot dogs, cracked open beers. Conversation drifted from college memories to current frustrations. The fire snapped and popped, sparks spiraling into the canopy. Around midnight, Sarah turned in first. Kyle followed, muttering about his early shift back home. Mason and I stayed up, drinking, staring into the flames. That's when I noticed it. A light. At first, I thought it was just another spark drifting through the fog. But sparks don't hover. This one floated, steady, weaving between the trees. "Mason," I whispered. He turned, squinting. The hell. It looked like a lantern. An old-fashioned one, with a handle and glass sides, swaying faintly as if carried. "Ranger?" I asked. Mason shook his head. "We're miles from any station. Nobody hikes out here at night." We both went silent, staring. The lantern moved between the trees, weaving slowly. But here's the thing, it never got closer. No matter how long we watched, it stayed the same distance away. And there were no footsteps, no crunch of leaves, no breaking twigs. Just silence. Mason grinned nervously. Cool trick of the fog, right? But I could hear the tension in his voice. We didn't wake the others. We just let the fire burn down and crawled into our tents, trying to convince ourselves we'd imagined it. I didn't sleep. The next day, we tried to shake it off. We fished, explored the shoreline, skipped rocks. Nobody mentioned the light. But as night fell again, I felt that same prickling under my skin, like the forest was holding its breath. By the time darkness swallowed the lake, fog had thickened around the trees. Our fire threw weak light, barely reaching the tree line. And then Sarah froze. Do you guys see that? The lantern was back. Same distance. Same slow weave between the trees. Kyle frowned. "That's weird. Who the hell is out here?" No one answered. The lantern glowed steadily, a warm yellow in the mist. It should have been comforting, but it wasn't. It felt wrong. We tried to ignore it. We told stories, cracked jokes too loud, forced laughter. But every few minutes, our eyes drifted back, and the lantern never moved closer, never moved away. It just was. Eventually, Mason stood. "Screw this. I'm checking it out." Sarah grabbed his wrist. "Don't." But Mason was already walking, flashlight in hand, crashing into the trees. The lantern swayed, then vanished. "Mason!" Kyle shouted. No answer. We scrambled up, panic knotting my chest. For a moment, the woods were silent, oppressive. Then, "Guys!" Mason's voice echoed back. "I'm fine. Just some old trail markers, nothing big. Chill." Relief hit like a wave. He stumbled back into the clearing, grinning, holding up a rusted metal hook tied with scraps of cloth. "See? Just old markers." But when I looked behind him into the woods, the lantern glowed again. And this time, it was closer. The third day felt heavier. No one admitted it, but we all felt it. Conversations were clipped, nervous. By dusk, tension was unbearable. Mason kept insisting it was nothing, just locals messing around or some natural phenomenon. But when darkness fell, the lantern returned. Closer still. It hovered maybe 20 feet from our tent line, swaying gently in the fog. Sarah whimpered. "That's not possible." Kyle stood, trembling. "We should leave. Tonight. Pack up and hike out." Mason shook his head. "Bad idea. We'll get lost in the dark. Just stay put until morning." None of us slept. The lantern stayed all night, swaying, watching, and just before dawn, it blinked out, like it had never been there. We should have left. God, I wish we had. But Mason convinced us to stay. One more night, he said. We'll hike out at first light. The air felt colder that evening, the fog thicker. Our fire sputtered weakly, like it was being smothered. And then, as if on cue, the lantern appeared, right at the edge of our firelight, closer than ever before. We froze, breath caught in our throats. The fog swirled around it, but the lantern cut through, steady, impossibly bright. And then, movement. A figure, just barely visible behind the glow. Tall, thin, too thin, its arm raised slowly, swinging the lantern in a gentle arc. Holy shit, Kyle whispered. It's a person, but no footsteps, no sound, only the swaying lantern. Something broke in me then. I grabbed my flashlight and stood. Don't, Sarah hissed, but I stepped forward, heart hammering. The beam cut through the fog, past the lantern, and hit nothing. No face, no body. The lantern hung in the air, swinging, suspended by nothing. Then with sudden force, it dropped to the ground, and all the trees around us lit up, hundreds of lanterns blazing in the fog. We screamed. We grabbed our gear, stumbling into the woods. Branches clawed at us, fog blinded us. Lanterns burned all around, weaving between trees. Keep moving, Mason shouted, but no matter which direction we ran, the lanterns followed. Closer, closer, until we broke into the clearing again. Our camp, our tent, right where we started, and standing in the center, lantern in hand, was Mason. At least, it looked like Mason. His face was wrong, too long, his smile stretched ear to ear. His eyes burned like fireflies. Sarah screamed. Kyle dropped his bag and bolted into the trees. The Mason thing lifted its lantern, and then the real Mason stumbled out of the woods, wild-eyed, bleeding. Run, he gasped. It's not. The lantern flared, blinding. When the light dimmed, Mason was gone, but the lantern wasn't. It swayed, closer than ever, inches from our tent. And this time, it didn't vanish with dawn. I don't remember how I made it out. Sometimes I think I didn't. I wake at night and see the glow outside my window. The lantern, swaying gently in the dark, waiting. It never gets closer, but it never leaves. And I know one night, when I finally give in and follow, I won't come back. If you ever go camping in the deep woods and you see a lantern swaying in the fog, don't follow it. Don't look too long. Pretend it isn't there. Because once you notice it, it notices you. And the lantern man never forgets. If these stories sent chills down your spine, make sure to hit that like button to support the channel and subscribe for more true and terrifying tales. Drop a comment below.